This is the part 2 of blend modes explained. The next we are going to see is contrast blend modes, which are these 7 blend modes from overlay to hard mix. These are contrast blend modes. The first one is overlay. So what overlay does is, overlay is a combination of multiply blend mode and screen blend mode. Whatever the areas that are greater than 50% gray, it brightens it up, and whatever the areas that are darker than 50% gray, it darkens it. So it basically creating a contrast, making the brighter parts brighter and darker parts darker. It does its calculations based on the base layer's color and brightness, while the rest of the 6 contrast blend modes does its calculations based on the blend color. So overlay is an exception. So I'll just turn off this brightness values and gray chart. I'll just duplicate this base layer and I'll change it to overlay. See, it just simply increases the contrast. I'll turn off this and I'll create a brightness contrast layer. I'll just adjust the contrast. So now you can see the difference. See, this is contrast adjusted using an adjustment layer. I'll turn this off and I'll turn on this base copy layer with overlay blend mode. See, basically it's same. So all of these are contrast blend modes, but how it works, it differs to each other. So the next blend mode is soft light. Soft light is similar to overlay, but the results are very subtle. It's not as contrasty as the overlay looks. It basically is soft light. It's softer than the overlay, but it also creates contrast. We will do the same. I'll just Control J, plus I'll copy it. I'll change it to soft light. See, it creates a subtle contrast. I'll just press again. I'll change this to overlay. I'll turn this off. So this is overlay. Its contrast is too high. The image is completely saturated. I'll turn this off. I'll turn this on. This one with soft light. It is creating contrast, but in a subtle way, and it looks soft and beautiful. So the next one is hard light. What hard light does is, it's very simple. Areas that are brighter than the 15% gray in the base layer, that means this landscape image, are brightened up. So there are no areas brighter than pure white, that is 100%, which we see here at the top. So it remains white. The areas between 100% and 50% gray are brightened up. Similarly, the areas that are darker than the 50% gray, that is this 25% area, in the base layer will get darkened. So nothing is darker than black, hence the black remains same. So this is how hard light blend mode works. Okay, the next one is vivid light. As the name suggests, it makes the image bright and intense to an extreme. So what it does, the areas that are brighter than 50% gray gets brightened up by decreasing the contrast between the base layer and the blend layer. Similarly, the areas that are darker than 50% gray gets darkened by decreasing the contrast between the blend layer and the base layer. 100% brightness and the 100% black remains same. So the next blend mode is linear light. Linear light is a combination of a linear dodge and linear burn from the brightening and darkening blend modes. It works almost as same as vivid light, but instead of varying the contrast between the base color and the blend color, it increases the base color or darkens the base color. So this is linear light. This is vivid light. This is linear light. This is vivid light. A vivid light looks saturated because it adjusts the contrast between the blend layer and the base layer. Hence, the saturation happens. But in linear light, it does not happen. It just adjusts the brightness values of the base layer. Anything above that is 50% gray gets brightened up by increasing the base layer's brightness. Any areas that are darker than 50% gray gets darkened by darkening the base layer. So here also white remains same and complete black remains same. I forgot to tell you one thing. In all the contrast blend modes, 50% gray remains same. So whatever the contrast blend mode you choose, 50% gray will not affect the base layer. The linear light also increases the saturation if we just copy this layer and just put it in linear light. See, it saturates. This is vivid light, this is linear light. The mathematics behind the working is different, but the results will be similar, depends on the images. So now I'll just create an solid color adjustment layer. I'll select the color somewhere around, okay. Then it is in linear light. If we change it to vivid light, Vivid light is little bit darker because it uses contrast to blend both images. Linear lights looks little bit lighter because it just reduces the brightness of the base color. Next blend mode is pin light. So what does pin light blend mode do? Pin light blend mode is a combination of darken blend mode and lighten blend mode. Above 50% of the gray, it acts as lightening blend mode. Below 50% gray, it acts as darkening blend mode. So there is nothing darker than black, hence the black is shown. There is nothing brighter than the white, so white is shown. As usual, 50% gray does not affect this image. So if I just create a copy of this layer, I'll put it in pin light, it does nothing. Similarly, if I put it in darken, it does nothing. If I put it in lighten, it does nothing, because the color and brightness values of the both the base color, that is base color and base color copy, are similar, so there is nothing to work with for the pin light or darken or lighten blend mode. The next blend mode is hard mix. What does hard mix do? So the hard mix blend mode shows us only the 8 colors of the color spectrum, which is white, black, red, green, blue, yellow, magenta and cyan. So I'll just create a gradient map. So there are too many colors here, a lot of mild oranges, yellows, we can keep that. Now if I change the blend mode to hard mix, it will show up only those 8 colors. So this is the purpose of the hard mix blend mode. So the next category of blend mode is inversion blend modes. So these are difference and exclusion or inversion blend modes. First we will see difference. So I'll put it on the difference blend mode. So what difference blend mode does is, it calculates the RGB value from both the base layer and blend layer and subtracts the color and shows us the result. I'll just explain it with a simple example. I'll create a new layer. I'll turn on this landscape. Using orders, I'll paint here and I'll create another layer. I'll paint the same here. Now I change this to difference. So what does difference blend mode do? It analyzes the RGB values from the base layer, which is this, and the RGB values from the blend layer, which is this, and subtracts the color. So both are of the same color, which is subtracted, the value becomes 0. The 0 is black. That's what's shown here. If I paint it with white, it will invert the color. The opposite of red is cyan. So that's what it's shown here. If I paint it with black, nothing will happen. It will remain same. I will also explain the subtract blend mode, which is from cancellation category. Why? Because difference and subtract blend modes are almost similar, only a slight variation will be there. So in difference blend mode, if you paint it with white, it inverts the color. But in subtract blend mode, it becomes black, because subtract blend mode does not go to negative value. Cyan, magenta, yellow are all negative colors, negative value colors. If I create a color balance adjustment layer, you will notice it. If I bring it to cyan, it goes into negative values, that is minus 100, minus 67, 63, like. Same way magenta, it's also minus. Same way yellow, it's also minus. So that is why in subtract blend mode, minus values become black. But in difference blend mode, the minus values will be shown, which is cyan. Opposite of red is cyan. So if I had a yellow, sorry, in the base layer, if I had a yellow here, if I paint it with white in the other layer, the opposite of yellow is blue. So it shows the negative values as well as positive values. So this is the difference between subtract and the difference blend mode. So the next blend mode is exclusion. So there is a similarity between overlay and soft light. Overlay produces high contrast and saturated images, but soft light is a subtle variation of overlay. It gives less saturated and less contrast images, but both works the same way. Similarly, exclusion is a subtle variant of difference. If the blend color is white, it inverts the color. So it's instead of blue, it's orange is yellow. 50% gray remains same. It does not blend or do anything, and black does nothing. So this is the exclusion blend mode. The areas that are darker than 50% gray and brighter than black will darken the image. So if I put it in difference, the 50% gray also inverts the color. So that's the difference between difference and exclusion. So the next blend mode is divide. So as subtract blend mode subtracts the color values between both base color and blend color, divide blend mode divides the color values between both base color and blend color. If the blend layer contains any darker color, it brightens up the resulting image. I am not sure, I've never used this divide blend mode. If you have any use cases, just let me know. So the next blend mode category is component blend mode category, which is the last 4. It is one of the easily understandable blend modes. What component blend mode does is, let's check out the first example. I'll just create an adjustment layer. I'll just create a hue 50. Hue 50. Hue is what color, saturation is how much color, brightness is the luminance value of the color. Should be brighter or darker, it depends. So I am selecting all 350 here. Please note this L, which is the perceived luminance value. This is the brightest part of the image. So the white at 100% brightness, perceived luminance value will be 100. The same yellow at the 100% brightness value, perceived luminance value will be 87. That's how our eyes perceive colors. I'll just create, I'll rename this to base layer, and I'll create in another solid color adjustment layer. I'll create maybe 100, 100, 100. Saturation and brightness value, hue, all of them are 100. If I change this to component blend mode, that is the first blend mode, hue, what happens is the hue remains the same. If you see, using the color picker, I've selected the resulted color. Hue remains the same, which is 100. That is the green. But the saturation and brightness value will be coming from base layer. So what hue does is, it keeps the, I'll rename this blend layer. It takes the hue, that is what color, from the blend layer, and the saturation and brightness from the base layer. That is what hue does. So if I change it to saturation, similarly what it does, it takes the saturation from the blend layer and the color brightness from the base layer. So if I use the color picker, the saturation is 100% almost. The first one, it's coming from the blend layer. Hue is 50, which is from base layer. Brightness, that is also from base layer. There will be slight changes to the values 50, 51, 49. It might occur, depends on the values. Similarly, the next one, the color. So what color blend mode does is, it keeps the hue and saturation from the blend layer and brightness from the base layer. So if I use the color picker again, it keeps the hue and saturation from the blend layer, which we already set it to 100. You see, hue is 100, saturation 99, and it takes the brightness from the base layer, that is 60. Since the saturation is higher, it shows us the 60 value. This is what this color blend mode do. So what hue does is, it keeps the hue from the blend layer, saturation and brightness from the base layer. Similarly, if I select saturation, it keeps the saturation from the blend layer and color and brightness from the base layer. If I select color, it keeps the hue and saturation from the blend layer and selects the brightness from the base layer. Next one is luminosity. So the luminosity blend layer, I'll show you in another example. It will be useful. We will get back to this same landscape. I'll create a brightness contrast adjustment layer. I'll increase the bright. If I show you before and after, you will notice the brightness and contrast adjustment layer did not just increase the contrast, but it also increased the saturation. So what if we want to keep the saturation same and just increase the contrast? So just go into luminosity. Now the brightness values will be changed, that is the contrast. The brighter values got brighter, darker values got darker, that is the contrast, but it did not affect the color or saturation of the image. So that is the purpose of the luminosity. Luminosity blend mode does get the brightness values from the blend layer, and the color and saturation will remain same as the base layer. So that is the purpose of the luminosity masks. These are all the blend modes we have learned. There are special 8 blend modes, which are, so those are color burn, linear burn, color dodge, linear dodge, vivid light, hard mix, and difference. So what do these special blend modes do? It reacts to opacity and fill differently. So I'll just create a copy of this, I'll turn on this gray chart, I'll put it in color burn. Now if I reduce the opacity, it reduces the effect of the image. But if I reduce the fill, it creates a dramatic effect. See, compared to opacity, it's reacting to fill differently. Show in another example which will help you understand better. Now, if I put this in colored dots, even if I reduce the opacity, it looks all washed out, right? But if I reduce the fill, reducing the fill, see the effect it gives. It looks amazing, isn't it? So that is the specialty of this 8 special blend modes, which are very useful while compositing, and also it can be used in color grading. So I'll show in another example. If I change it to vivid light, it looks bright and everything. I'll just reduce the, looks fantastic, isn't it? No, it does not look fantastic. So these are the working of 8 special blend modes. These 8 special blend modes reacts differently to opacity and fill. So this video is getting longer. I will leave now. Thank you.